Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Michael.
We start every episode the same way.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Michael. And guess what?
What?
We just bought a house.
Is it haunted?
Well, I actually asked if it was haunted. They don't know.
No? This will be a fun discovery if it is. Do you kind of hope it is?
Yeah.
The house that I grew up in Indiana, I'm pretty sure it was haunted. Of course, at the time I was a teenager and I had a very, very overactive imagination, but there were times when I was really it'd be like 3 o'clock in the morning and I'd wake up to children laughing.
Oh.
Yeah, I would look out the window what the hell is going on? And there's no kids out there. And I would hear this on a regular basis for a while. It lasted for about a year that I would hear children laughing in the middle of the night.
Well, that's creepy.
And then we always had this couch that no matter how much you straightened and cleaned it up or whatever, I would walk in, it looked like someone had been sitting there, but no one had even been in the room. This was a huge Victorian house that we had rooms that were useless. They were like show rooms, just rooms where whenever mom would have company, we'd go in there. So it'd be once every month, someone would go in. It just, that kind of weird thing. And then you always hear someone. I still remember when we first moved in, I was by myself. I wasn't used to the fact that the toilet upstairs flushed on its own. So the very first time it happened, I heard it and then I ran outside. I don't know why I ran outside. I don't know what that solves. I just sat out there. I'm like, I'll wait till my parents get home. I'm not going back in there.
Or flight reflex. You have the flight reflex.
Oh, I have to tell you this, though. This is the scariest part, is we have a basement, like one of those old stone basements. It's all gross, nothing's been done with it. It's fallen apart, and sometimes rats would show up. Well, if you go in one of the closets that's in there, actually, I think it's the only closet that's in there, there was another room. But inside that room, someone had dug out about 4 feet up a giant hole that you would crawl into, and then there was another room, and I have no idea what that was about.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, so it was a scary house.
Yeah, that sounds like it might be. This is actually just a sort of a ranch. It's not like a long sideways ranch. It actually extends towards the backyard, and it's one story. It was built in 1964, so it's totally mid-century.
But is it built on ancient burial ground? Maybe
it's quite possible. It's possible
because you don't see a lot of horror movies set in ranch houses. They're usually in old Victorians and stuff like that. Something with a long history or log cabins.
Yeah, this isn't like Victorian, like you said. This isn't one of those big creepy old houses. I have my work cut out for me because it's all yellow inside.
Why is it all yellow?
Previous owner painted it yellow. Every room.
Why would you paint anything yellow? Yes, I want my house to be the same color as my urine. Yes, that sounds perfect.
It's a really robust urine
color. Oh, so it's a vitamin fill. It's someone who had a lot of B vitamin.
It's a very sunflower. Because I worked as a house painter for a year. I know all the ropes except for what paints to actually buy because I never did the buying of the paint. But I know how to apply all the paint. And yellow is the most difficult to cover.
That's awful. The only thing that could be worse is maybe lime green, the entire house, that or pink.
Hey, lime green might be okay.
All right, so
it all depends on color combinations. But haunted, I don't know. I hope it's like a benign haunting, funny haunting, like ghost turds, basically. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. Ghost turds. You go into the bathroom, there's a turd in the toilet. My wife didn't do it. I didn't do it. Nobody's visited. Who did this turd? That's what we're hoping for. We're not hoping for monsters popping out of closets.
No, but one movie that we were going to discuss today, in fact, most of them have monsters popping out left and right. That is the House series.
Yes.
And this was your idea. Oddly enough, this was your idea, but at no point did you ever think to connect this with the fact that you just bought a house and you're moving in October.
No. I was thinking, it's October. Last year, you had me do an October list, the very first time I've ever been on a podcast, and I didn't mention House 2, but I forgot that on my list, and I desperately wanted to put it in there, but I couldn't, because, of course, it was like a 3-hour long
Oh my God, were our shows
podcast,
long in the beginning. Now, we really tested people's patience.
Holy crap. Yeah, so House 2 is really my goal here, but we have to get through all the others.
So let's start with the first one.
We'll go in order. House.
Enter at your own risk. This is a house where no one should live.
Woman lived here before you was nuts. Wouldn't be surprised if someone just got fed up and offed her. She was my aunt. Heart of gold, though.
Roger Cobb has come here alone, but no one is ever alone in the house.
This house knows everything about you.
It has been waiting for him. Now, it wants you. Horror has found a new home. House. Enter at your own risk.
Actually, this is my favorite one of the bunch. I actually really enjoy the story. William Katt is just really, really good, and he plays off well with George Wendt. And most of the
tell me the story. Tell me the bare bones, straight, quick, and dirty story. Do it.
William Katt plays Roger Cobb. Roger Cobb inherits a house from his aunt who just committed suicide. Right? It was his aunt, right? Not his grandmother?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was his aunt. He goes into the house. He's a writer. He's a Stephen King-style writer. You see, he's a Stephen King-style writer. I was went into that voice. And he's going through difficulties in his marriage because they lost their son at that house earlier, I think a year or two earlier. And he's trying to finish his book, but at the same time, he's dealing with a lot of serious emotional problems. Part of it is because of the house. Part of it is because of the book that he's working on, which is about his time in Vietnam. And the house basically feeds on his fear. It's like as his stress grows, it gets stronger and stronger. And besides the fact that it's trying to taunt him, it also gives him the opportunity to face a lot of those fears.
It's a very guilt-laden film.
Yeah.
Extremely guilt-laden film. There's the guilt of the divorce. There's the guilt of the lost friend in Vietnam, and those are the two heavy things. So
well, the guilt of losing his son too.
Yeah, and that's the divorce part. That's wrapped up in the same. The son and the divorce thing is a catalyst to get to the Vietnam guilt, which is, I think, is the most arcing guilt. That's the heavier thing in his life.
You know what I like about this movie? Out of all of them, the comedy in this one, for the most part, works because they play it straight. It's absurd, and the reactions to the absurdity is what makes it funny. George Wendt surprisingly plays it completely dry.
Yeah.
And almost William Katt is almost the funny one, but not
completely dry.
So, but
it's George Wendt dry, so it means it's funny. Every time he's like deadpan, but he's delivering a funny line.
Yeah, but I mean, under the wrong hands, and it's surprising that that Steve Miner, the director of this, would fall so flat on his face with his next movie, Soul Man. It seems like when Steve Miner does horror movies, it's pretty straightforward, pretty what's the word I'm thinking of? It's not generic, but workmanlike. That's what I want to say. Workmanlike. It's there's nothing really wrong with that. He's just a guy who works fast. He gets what needs to be done.
You've seen Lake Placid, right?
Yeah, he did do Lake Placid. He did Forever Young, My Father the Hero, Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3.
Lake Placid excelled at what it did. I think Lake Placid is where he's got all cylinders firing. He's got the perfect cast. He's got a good story. He's got fun all throughout. And this is a lot like Lake Placid.
Yeah, it handles a lot of the different elements correctly. I think this is his best movie. Lake Placid's okay in my book. It has a good script, but I enjoy House more. The only thing that undermines House is the rubber work. It's a rubber reality movie, but some of the costumes don't work. Some of them are really great.
Yeah, the monstery stuff popping out of the walls.
Really big
you can
one.
Tell that it's an armature.
The big beast that talks in a really high-pitched cartoon voice. That actually took me out of the movie for a while.
Now, I saw this back, I've seen it since, but I saw this back in the day when I was a kid, and it didn't terrify, and nothing scared me. Nothing does scare me.
Is it because you're dead inside?
But I know it's creepy, and I know it's horrible, and I know what's terrifying, but I don't ever get, holy crap, turn the lights on, about anything. And this movie it can't be like that unless you're a child.
There is...
If you are a child, like 8-year-old
there's very
maybe.
few movies that make my skin crawl and made me really uncomfortable growing up. I can count them on one hand, but there's one movie that should not have bothered me so much, was Critters. I don't know why that movie scared me so much. It was my very first scary movie, or it intended to be a scary movie. I wouldn't sit on the ground for a week.
Well, maybe it's because the furry things are cute. They're cute, or possibly cute things that are furry, and you want to cuddle with them and touch them and hang out with them and pet them. And then they're monsters and they're horrible at the same time. That's possibly why it disturbed you. Because I know you like dogs.
Oh, I just watched Cujo, and that just tore me up inside watching that dog fall apart and turn into a monster. Back to the house.
House. Hold on. The rubber suits you were talking about, I think the best use of it was with Richard Mall.
Yeah, I like the closet monster. I thought that was pretty good too.
Like what? The outfit, he's basically a zombie. with a big machine gun. And that design, how they did it and implemented it, was incredibly well done.
The very first time I saw this movie, I think it was around 92, 93, and I was not used to Richard Mole playing a villain because I'd only seen him on Night Court. Right, you just wanted him to play
the dumb guy.
Yeah,
right.
He always plays the dope, and when I saw this, I was like, whoa, this is such a revelation. But, knowing more about movies and his career, this was leading up. He was doing villain roles up to this point, and Night Court was kind of interspersed in between. Then Night Court obviously became his main thing. He started doing comedy all the time, but then it switched back. Like, the minute Night Court was over with, he went back to doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Weird.
Well, I like this movie. I do. But it's not my favorite of the bunch.
No, your favorite.
My favorite of the bunch.
Go ahead.
Is House 2.
Last year, audiences everywhere thrilled to a terrifying film. Now, there's an all-new house.
It's like you got some kind of alternate universe in there or something.
With brand new owners. And it's getting weirder.
Look, it's a prehistoric bird.
I've seen enough tragedy and disaster to make you want to upchuck in your shorts.
Two friends inherit a fantastic house and a 170-year-old mummy.
Surprise!
Who is this?
You can call me Gramps.
Now, they're in for more trouble than they ever imagined. House 2, the second story.
This place gives me the creeps.
It is so... They took the concept of a strange house and the whole portal into memory or whatever, with the Vietnam thing from the first one, and they just threw it up into a ceiling fan. Threw all the pages up into a ceiling fan, let it get all chopped up, put the pages back together. They came out with a strange Aztec Indiana Jones slice of Western action horror movie with fantasy elements, and it's amazing to me. It also has a link to Cheers.
The fans of the first movie were furious with the second movie because they turned into a full kids movie. Now,
it's not even a kids movie though.
I see it as a kids movie. The problem with the second one is that people don't view it as an anthology. It's like a TV show that can take different angles, like the way Amazing Stories would. One week you'd have a serious one, then one, then a whimsical one, then a dark one, then a silly one. It's supposed to be an anthology centered around one thing, a house. I think it's during a period where everybody was looking for more gore. They were looking for a villain that you can connect to and more gore, and when they saw that it wasn't the same house, none of the people from the first movie returned, there was no villain to connect to, because this is all about franchises in the 80s. Everybody wanted to sequelize with a character that you could root for. Usually you were rooting for a villain that would kill stupid people, but the focus of House was never that.
No, nobody's stupid in it, except...
I still don't like the second one as much as the first, but I'm starting to appreciate it more as I get older, and the more I see it, and the more that I understand, this, like I said, is an anthology.
Okay, now, let's break this down. A guy inherits a house from his... I forget who, it doesn't matter. He gets there with his...
Very gross.
Yeah, he gets there with his fiancée, who's a pop starlet. The house starts acting weird, but not straight off the bat. Bill Maher is a music producer, and he shows up with some bimbo lady, and they exit stage left really early on in the movie, but just enough so that there's some tension going on between the main character and his girlfriend, and that's all incidental. I'm not painting this too well yet. It's a Halloween movie, so they have a Halloween party, but before they have the Halloween party, they go exploring and they find his great-great-grandfather's grave, and they dig him up for some stupid reason, and he's alive, but he's a damn zombie, as he says himself. It's amazing. This old guy, he was in Ghoulies 2.
Royal Dano.
Oh, yes.
Great character actor. I just
so
watched
good.
him in something that's Wicked
and he
Way
does
Comes.
this really funny old prospector guy as a zombie. At the same time, with the portal thing that they're calling back to the first one, that's like the major idea that stayed over. The haunted house / the first one had the portals to the memory time. This is portals into past, into the history of wherever they are. There's prehistoric stuff in which there's a little bird, a pterodactyl basically. It's a puppet, but it's hilarious. And then there's Caterpillar, but it's a dog, so it's a Doggerpillar. Did you ever get that?
You know what? I will say this. That's where I got kind of turned off. It's too cutesy. That dog and that bird are just too cutesy. And that's why I say it's a kids movie.
I see why you say it's a kids movie. And it definitely appealed to me when I was younger like that, but appeals to me now because I like creature effects. And I like how stupid things look sometimes. I like the bird. It's obviously a puppet, but it looks really stupid and funny as it's like running around with the MacGuffin is the skull, the crystal skull. Before Spielberg got his hands on this crystal skull, it was in this movie. And it's the MacGuffin. The whole thing is this horrible, bad villain Black Bart type guy, who's also a zombie, is coming after the grandpa for the silver skull. The silver skull is the only thing basically keeping either of them alive. So you have this Western theme thing going on, you have this jungle theme thing going on, and at some point, Jonathan Ratzenberger comes over as an electrician / adventurer with a cutlass, opens up a wall into some strange Mayan / Aztec ritual city thing in which they rescue a virginal princess type lady. This movie's all over the place and I love it for it.
John Ratzenberger is probably my favorite part of this movie. Royal Dano is amazing as well. The funny thing is how much they did with such little money. I mean, back in the day, you had to create, especially if it was an independent studio, you had to create these worlds on very tiny amounts of money.
Yeah.
Now, this is not a surprise with horror movies because they've always kind of been kind of tightly budgeted, but this is beyond a horror movie. This is like Indiana Jones style movie mixed with horror, and to pull this off on like $2.5 million stuns me.
Yeah, you also have an early appearance from Kane Hodder as a man in a gorilla suit who gets his butt kicked by a professional wrestler / barbarian.
Whoever that was.
Yeah, I don't know his name, but the guy's enormous. But he has the build of a He-Man action figure.
He does. It's ridiculous. He doesn't look normal.
And he's also big, but I'm used to seeing the He-Man action figures squat and small. But this guy's taller than that, but he's the width, the proportions of that He-Man action figure. It's nuts.
Yeah.
So,
all right, so this movie didn't do very well compared to the first one, but it did well enough for someone to keep the franchise alive. But New World was in serious financial trouble, so MGM came calling, picked up the franchise in a weird way.
Yeah.
It was sold as House 3 overseas.
Yeah.
Here it was called The Horror Show.
Nobody's going to miss Max Janke, especially Detective Lucas McCarthy. He was born bad and stayed that way. Nobody's going to miss Max Janke.
We sent 50,000 volts of juice through that scum. Looks pretty dead to me, Professor.
Because he hasn't gone anywhere.
Lucas, I'm coming back to tear your world apart.
I told you I'd be back. This is just the beginning.
But here's the part where it gets very strange. In Italy, there is a franchise called La Casa, which of course means the house.
Mm-hmm.
Evil Dead 1 and 2 were released under La Casa.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 exploitation movies, I think Ghost House and something else, were also released as La Casa.
Yeah.
So by the time the house was released in Italy, La Casa was already up to part 5. So, in Italy, House 3, aka The Horror Show, I believe is La Casa Part 8.
Gosh, those Italians did that with Zombie as well.
Yeah, there's tons of those.
Crazy.
And Beyond the Door.
Yeah.
Beyond the Door is another one where they kept milking it.
Yeah. So this one has Lance Henriksen as a cop who his partner gets killed by a serial killer right in front of him, and he gets his just revenge by watching the serial killer get executed. At the same time, around the same time, Shocker came out. Wes Craven's Shocker, which is a far...
Yeah, I think they were like about 4 months apart.
Yeah, that's a far superior film. And this sounds like, to me, one of those insider track things. We have a guy in dreams or in using electricity, whatever, to get from house to house, but he's a ghost. Concept is like semi-Freddy Krueger-ish, but...
Yeah, this is
you
at
don't
the
have to
very
sleep.
end of the rubber reality. This is when 1989 is the worst year for horror movies because every franchise died that year.
Yeah, Shocker, to bring that back, isn't a great movie, but it is far superior to this movie.
Yeah, I don't understand Shocker all the way. Literally, I watched it last night. But I sit there and I'm just trying to wrap my head around what the ideas that Wes Craven was trying to bring about seem to be beyond the budget.
Yeah, there's a scene where there's a family sitting there watching television, and
that's my favorite part. You want?
That is my favorite part too. The decor of the house is amazing.
Terrible.
It's so good. Look at the paintings on the wall. Look at whoever designed that scene was just like, I'm gonna do this dream of mine to design a really kitschy, tacky, yet surprisingly pleasing room. It's perfect.
Well, I think it's funny is they're listening to the stand-up guy laughing harder than anybody ever would, and then all of a sudden Lance Henriksen's seeing a whole different show. But my favorite thing is how everybody was in slow-mo, like ha ha ha.
Wait. We're talking about 2 different movies.
Wait, did they have the same exact scene in Shocker? I didn't notice it.
I'm talking about Shocker. And Shocker has
what?
Yes, it's a very I don't know. I don't really want to say John Waters, but it's a very John Waters-y decor in the scene. But the people in it are less affected than the scene that you're talking about.
Okay, I must have missed that part or whatever.
The scene that you're talking about in House 3 horror show is just bizarre.
Yeah, it goes on forever, and those kids are just... I wanted them to play the laugh in slow-mo, like...
See, I'm going to go on record here. I hate this movie. It's
garbage.
I hate it so much. And Brian James, who is the villain, said... he said it's his favorite role. According to the IMDb.
Right.
And we all know that the IMDb doesn't lie about anything. But
if you look at his roles, though, there's not a lot of room to be like, I like that one. That was not so much. They're almost all, crap, that sucked. And my favorite is his over-the-top British accent in Tango and Cash. Yeah, that's my favorite.
I think my most enjoyable Brian James movie is Crime Wave. But that
his laugh is so unnerving.
But it's also an obnoxious movie.
Yeah.
Like, so, as far as his where he's a major role in it. But the best one he's in is Blade Runner, obviously.
Oh, yeah. The movie which I fell asleep in every single time I watch it. Every single time.
But you can't discount it's good. You can fall asleep during good movies.
It's beautiful and boring. I dated a girl like that once.
Haven't we all? Maybe. I don't know. Some of us haven't. Who knows? Anyway, House 3. What went wrong? Why is it so terrible?
Well, if you're going to go the route... The problem with the House series is that they take huge turns away from the previous movie. The first one and the second one aren't that far apart, even though it's more of a fantasy than horror. But then it's like they were
Sure, but it's still a house... It's house-centric.
It's like they were trying to make up for it in the third one by going full-on slasher, gore... Okay, how many times can they possibly drop the F-bomb? The scene where Lance Henriksen is getting interrogated is the worst thing in this movie. It is so insane. Oh, you? Well, come in, you. It's like, come on. I feel like they were improvising the whole thing because the script was not done.
Yeah.
In fact, isn't this an Alan Smithy movie, or the script was written by an Alan Smithy?
I have no clue. I haven't looked that deep into it. It's just so bad. The direction of it is pedestrian.
Yeah, you know what? It's shot very well. It looks good.
There's this way that films were shot in the late.
I think the cinematography is fine. It's just everything else that sucks.
You think so? Oh, I think everything looks of its time. Looks of 87 to 95.
Oh, well, I'm completely okay with that. I'm just saying, of that moment, the cinematography for a horror movie was pretty top notch, because horror movies were not really focused on how they look.
Oh.
They were more focused on the gore and the special effects.
The atmosphere, sure, is good. They have a lot of atmosphere in the movie, but
I feel like a lot of this was shot in empty warehouses.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
And smoke machines and steam machines,
this
whatever.
is during that weird period, that very brief period where a bunch of independent movies decided to, hey, let's go get Lance Henriksen. He was really good in Aliens. Let's have him play the lead. He was never really meant to be a lead. He's always been a good villain or a supporting role.
Yeah, major supporting is his best. And I like Lance Henriksen. He's a surly old cuss nowadays, and I think that's cute. One day I hope to be a surly old cuss. I'm on my way.
I'm already there. I'm so already there.
Yeah. So this movie, though, he doesn't do too well, and it's not because of him. It's because it's what the project is, and the director doesn't direct him well. Like you said, the whole improv with the F-bombs everywhere.
At some point, somebody should have cut and redid it, and for some reason, like, oh, we're out of time, we gotta go. And it's like little things in this movie don't make any sense. The turkey monster is actually pretty nauseating.
Oh yeah, what the heck, right? This is like, let's do some Freddy Krueger stuff here, and put his face in the food, like as if the face is part of the food. Ha ha ha! Doesn't work. Nothing works in this movie.
Speaking of nausea and faces and food, we might as well just move on to the fourth one.
Yeah, well, okay.
House 4, Home Deadly Home, right?
Roger Cobb has returned to his father's house.
You're making a big mistake.
He promised he would live here.
There are many memories of the past still sleeping in this house.
I'm tied to that house.
He never knew he would die here. His wife has come home to an empty house.
Do you think there are ghosts here?
Or has she?
Who are you?
The plumber.
If you love being scared, welcome home. Now, the only thing that can protect her is a love that wouldn't die. House 4. Open the door, if you dare.
House 3 is terrible. House 4 tries to link the first and the last.
Okay, explain to me, is there a long gap between the two? Is it supposed to be many, many, many years down the road? Or did he marry somebody who had a kid? I didn't grasp what exactly the relationship, how that happened, or if anybody even cared.
It didn't really matter. It's just Roger Cobb is now with some other lady. I suppose his divorce, they don't even mention it. Like, they don't really need to.
Yeah, but it kind of craps on the end of the first one. They never mention his son. They never mention his previous wife, which I thought they got back together at the end of the first movie and everything was peaceful and happy. The fourth one kind of undermines all of that. And then you're like, well, who's this lady? And why is this? Is that his kid? Because that means this movie is at least 20 years difference, between the first and the fourth one.
Well, this movie also, let's not get into the movie yet. Let's get into the style of it. This is shot really cheap as well. This is even more of that era that I was telling you about, the look. Even more flat. Like where they use like red gels on the lights and blue gels on the lights. And so, like, one half of the person's red and one half of the person's blue, but it's not even, like, that cool new wave look. It's badly lit. It's mostly badly staged. There are a couple of moments that pay off, but then it's too little too late.
This is the point where the franchise obviously was at its end, but Sean Cunningham found a way to sell it again. He sold the rights to New Line Cinema, and New Line Cinema was interested in doing direct-to-video movies. They had experimented that with the Critter movies, and I think there was another franchise that they were doing sequels to. I can't remember what it was, but this is when they started going, hey,
Leprechaun? I don't know. Leprechaun, maybe? Or was that
No, that was Vidmark, Trimark. But they had purchased the rights thinking that they could launch another series of House movies meant straight for video, like for a low budget.
Yeah.
And oh man, is this movie low budget? I would say this probably isn't more than $1 million, and it shows.
Yeah, it really shows. The house itself is in the middle of nowhere. They didn't have a neighborhood. There's no neighborhood. There's like a foothill in California behind it, and there's just this house, and it's a Victorian or an Edwardian house or whatever. I don't understand that first. I don't understand the location of that house. Why is it just...
Yeah, it's very strange.
Alone...
Well, and he acts like there's this huge history, but he never bothered to ever mention it in the first movie. I just feel like the only reason they added William Katt and Roger Cobb was somehow to make up for the damage from the third movie, and the second movie having nothing to do with.
Yeah.
Just like a desperate attempt to keep it going.
Yeah, so Roger Cobb has this house. He's not going to sell it. His stepbrother comes over and is like, we got to sell it. And he's like, no. Because I'm still alive. If I'm dead, then it goes to my wife. So, no. And maybe after she dies, you can have it, but it's not going to happen. Except, it does happen. He does die. Really early on.
Yeah, they kind of wipe him. He shows up periodically throughout the movie, but...
Yeah, it's he has to come back and save the day sort of thing. But in a poetic kind of way. Not a very good poem, but... poetic nonetheless. Still, the wife moves back into the house. She decides not to sell it. There is Native American gentleman who knows about this portal in the basement. Tell me about that. What is that?
I'm sorry, what? I missed all of that.
Tell me about the portal in the basement.
I don't remember there being a portal in the basement.
That's the big deal was. There's a seal in the floor in the basement, and the Native American guy came over and blessed it or something.
Okay, here's what I remember from the movie. I'm your pizza man. I'm your pizza man. I remember that.
No, don't get into it yet. We have to wait. Do not get into that yet. Pizza Man, fine. Do not get into it yet.
I have been itching to talk about that.
Do not, because we're going to be yelling over each other about it. Anyway, do not yet. Okay, so the brother wants to get... That's what it was. It's a well.
Hey, I like that actor. He's pretty good. Scott Burkholder. I looked him up. He hasn't really been in much throughout his career. Just kind of like, he's one of those day players in a Bruckheimer movie kind of person.
Oh, yeah.
And he hasn't acted in 10 years, but I actually enjoy his performance.
Yeah, he's really sleazy, grimy. We're going to ruin this movie anyway. So what he does is he orchestrates his brother's death. That's a twist at the end that we realize. There are some weird hauntings that go on in the house in the meantime, and it's kind of trying to protect the lady, perhaps. The haunting doesn't really make sense. Her daughter got hurt in the wreck as well, and so she's in a wheelchair, so there's some wheelchair-based haunting stuff going on at the same time, or the daughter can't get away because she's not in her wheelchair stuff. It's not really of too much consequence. But there's a part, and I'm not there yet, there's a part where the henchmen are down in the basement trying to blow up the hole, the seal over the well. It's like a spiritual well, a Native American spiritual well. It keeps the whole world in harmony. harmony or something. And they want to use that for toxic waste.
I think it's weird that I have no memory of this. I literally watched it last night.
We're almost there, though. Do you remember the bugs and the snake?
The what?
The bug head and the snake head.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, when they shot each other. Yeah.
Okay, so that's later on. But that is a good payoff for a second, because the bug head, the ant head, whatever, and the snake head masks, and the costuming there was really, really great. That's really positive. I really enjoyed looking at those. The scene itself, whatever, they kill each other. Blah, blah, blah. Why do they want to dump toxic waste? They're in bed with a little man who has many ailments, and one of them is... Take it away.
He needs a phlegmatic. Is it because of toxic waste? Because he's constantly surrounded by toxic waste? It is the most revolting.
It's horrible.
I'm really thinking about it now, and I'm starting to, I want to hurl. But he has all this.
Yes.
It's the worst thing. I almost
laughed.
I texted you when it happened. I was like, I'm going to chuck, dude. I'm going to throw up right now. And I've seen this movie like 3 times before. And I think it's funny that I've seen this movie 3 times, and I still don't remember the portal in the basement.
I saw it one time before, and I remembered as I was watching it this time. I remembered, all right, this is going to make me sick.
Yeah, he has this insane amount of phlegm or whatever it is that comes out of his lungs, and he uses a suck machine to...
Which is not even the worst part. It's terrible.
It is not. You would think it would be.
The worst part, number 1, is this. When he talks as this is happening, he has, like, pudding in his mouth or something, and he's just letting it ooze onto his lips as he's talking, so it's like doing that slimy, sticky mouth thing, and it's a close-up. That's worst part number 1. No. That's worst part number 1. Part number 2. Yeah. Part 2... They take the stepbrother and they force feed him a glass of it.
Good God, y'all.
It's so... Okay, if you want to watch a horror movie, just watch that scene in this movie. That is your horror movie. All the ghost stuff, move it aside. Just that. And that stuff actually doesn't seem like it even fits in the movie.
No, it's
a tonal shift. The whole subplot or the major plot, even though it seems like a subplot, but it's still a motivating plot.
It seems like it's
to get them out of the house.
Yeah, well, you remember how we were talking about how like there was a trend in the late 80s, early 90s of these oddball movies that are trying to be as strange as possible, like The Dark Backward and Ruben and Ed, trying to find this niche of truly oddball, bizarre things, and this seems like that extreme. Like, this is so strange. It doesn't feel like a horror movie. It doesn't feel like a comedy. It feels like just some sort of out of nowhere bizarro film.
It feels like a trauma movie. This is what I realized when I was watching it.
Okay, yeah.
Like a gross out trauma movie.
I wonder where Louis Abernathy even came from, or where he went, the guy who directed this movie, because I got nothing on him.
Huh. Well, he did a favor. He wanted to try his hand at directing and realized he's not that good at it. I don't know.
All right, so there is one scene that saves this movie, in my opinion.
What's
that's
that?
The one I was singing about before.
Yes.
There is a super enthusiastic pizza guy at the door who gives it everything that he has, and you can tell that this is probably one of his first performances, and he's like, they're all gonna remember me for this. Yeah, because it's probably the only thing you ever did.
I'm your pizza man. I'm your pizza man. And I'm delivering your favorite pizza pie. I'm your pizza man. I'm your pizza man. And I am everybody's favorite takeout guy. You never have to worry that your pizza will be cold, 'cause I keep it heated up on my engine's manifold. So the next time you are hungry for a pizza in a pan, don't forget to call your favorite pizza man. $12.50, please.
This is gonna make me a star.
Yeah.
And the little girl keeps singing it. That's why it gets stuck in your head. If he had just done it, it probably would have gone away. But she keeps singing it. But then the pizza itself joins in on the song, and that's where the scene I love that scene.
Everybody's favorite takeout guy. You never have to worry that your pizza's getting cold, 'cause I keep it heated up on my engine manifold. So the next time you get hungry for a pizza in a pan,
don't forget to eat your favorite pizza, man.
And that's a pizza. That's a food face thing too. But it's whose face is it? It's nobody in particular. So that's interesting. It's just an actor.
It oddly reminds me of Cabin Boy when he's. It's been a while since I've seen Cabin Boy, but I remember like the moon was chewing some chaw and he spits it.
Yeah.
On
So
top,
the face in the moon.
All right. So I think we're at the end of this series. Part 4. What?
Roger Cobb comes back and encourages his wife in some direction and in a way saves the day. That's what I was saying about poetic stuff. And then the stepbrother gets his just rewards, his comeuppance, and it's dumb.
So the first 2 obviously have been available on DVD and streaming for a long time. Part 3, The Horror Show, just came out from Shout Factory on Blu-ray DVD. And the 4th one is going to be the one that's a challenge. You either have to find it under the radar, hint, hint, wink, wink, or you're going to have to get a VHS player out because it is not on DVD. I have no idea why it's still not on DVD, but maybe New Line's just sitting on it because they don't technically own the rights, maybe, and then they do, so they don't want to share the profits.
Or whatever.
I don't know.
Who knows?
This is back when New Line Cinema was still a tiny, scrappy little independent studio, and they were just winging it, I guess.
Look, here's why. Because New Line is Warner Brothers now, and Warner Brothers wants to have money so that they could put it into DC movies. So they're not going to put out a Blu-ray, which costs a pretty penny, or even a DVD. There's not a big market for DVDs anymore.
Right.
They're not going to put it out for any kind of money because there's no call for it. It won't make them money back. That's why.
And they don't license things out. They don't license titles out to other companies. So we are out of luck on this one. So if you download it, I don't blame you because there's really no other way unless you're going to dust off a VCR and go buy a copy for $15 used.
Yeah, well, of the 4, yours is 1, mine is 2. Favorites.
Mine is 2? No.
Mine is House 2. Yours is 1, mine is 2.
All right, so this is the end of the episode. We want to let you know that this episodes are probably going to slow down.
Yeah.
We were kind of going crazy for a while there. It's going to be a little more sporadic. I'm going to be filling in as much as I can with some mini-sodes.
Cool.
And I think we're just going to be kind of popping in once a month. The mini-sodes I had an idea for, it's launched by this episode here, is called Franchise Frenzy, where I do a very fast episode giving crazy descriptions of these franchises that were all over the place for people who just want to save time. They don't want to devote 20 hours of their life to watching a series, and I'll just give you the rundown.
All right, that sounds interesting. Informative, time-saving.
And fast.
Yeah.
Short and fast.
Yeah, so we'll do this about once a month. Nothing huge. It'll be a 4, 5, 6 movie thing, but it won't be once every week because I got to paint a house, man.
Yep.
So, and hopefully it won't be that haunted. Maybe just ghost turds.
I hope it is. The stories are so much better if it is.
Yeah, maybe. On that note, I've got to get off to go paint a house.
I've got to go fly to the moon and take a bite out of it
because it's cheese.
Yes, I'm hungry. I like cheese.
All right, kids. Good night.
Good night.
And happy haunting.
Yes, I want my house to be the same color as my urine.